Hey, everyone. This is Dr. Crystal Richardson. I'm not in my normal studio today. I am in a different location, but will be returning to my studio. I wanted to meet with you today on The World Speaks. We're going to be having people from across the globe come and give you various perspectives related to business, life, health, finances, a number of other things. We are still on our pre-shows currently. And what I want to talk about today is the word perspective, and what that potentially means to you and how it can shape our reality, how it can shape our life, how it can shape our mindset and our business. And everything that we do is all in relation to the word perspective. So as we get ready for the show today, I welcome you to get a notepad, your iPad, even here on your computer. If there's something that you want to type on your computer related to notes, we would love to have you join in with us and gather some of the lessons that will be taught on today related to perspective. One of the things I want to discuss is our perspective is expanded. This is not one of our points, but we can call it point zero because it is important. Our perspective can be advanced related to our ability to speak and to explain what it is that we're doing, what it is that we have as our perspective, as well as to have the proper sentence structure and question outline when we're talking to people, asking them their opinion and their perspective. This is how we gain information and can then shape and reshape. If we so choose to use that information, we can shape and reshape our perspective. So speaking is very important. So based on that, I'm going to show you a commercial, and we'll be right back as you get your notepad related to how you can increase your perspective related to speaking. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. This is Dr. Crystal Richardson. Extremely happy, excuse me, to be with you today to talk about the word perspective. So as we look at that word, it is a word that is used in our English language and, can be translated in other languages. And I wanted to know, what you felt about that word. What does that mean to you? There is a Webster's dictionary definition, obviously, but when I personally think about that word, it's how I look at things, how I view things through my mind's eye and through my soul and through my heart and through my emotions and how I respond and react. If you've watched any of my shows, you've heard me speak about those two terms, response and reaction. And it's based on our reality, based on our perspective. So I really, really love the word perspective. And I was recently hosting a retreat, and one of the ladies talked about that word, and it is one of my favorite words, I guess you would say, because it shapes who we are and what it is that we do. So as we get into the show today, I want to have where I just pull up a couple notes here to share. related to the word perspective. So we're going to go over 5 key points. And one of the words that I just mentioned is the word reality. And so when we think of the word perspective, uh, it is a word that can shape our dreams. It can shape how we dream and how we act in our businesses and in our life. And so when we think of, even if there's something that's happening in our house, let's say with another member of our family, or in our business with a business partner, and we think of the word perspective. Now, first, what we're going to do is survey the situation. So you can write down survey. We're going to survey the situation. And then based on that, whether we're listening or whether we are looking at what's going on, we're going to develop some emotions and some thought processes and thought patterns around what it is that we think may be going on. And it may be that we even verbally ask some questions or say some statements that interjects ourselves into the situation. So let's say that there's something going on at work or with one of our business partners, and we see something that they're working on their computer, and it looks like it's some kind of chart, and it's something that was a project maybe that they were supposed to be working on, and they maybe were supposed to get it done maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And so your perspective is, oh, they're finally working on that. But then you see them go to another screen that doesn't have anything to do with the chart, and you see then that, because you're walking by, you're not just standing there like, spying on them, but you see then that they go back to the chart. And so you're like, okay, my perspective of this situation, my view of this situation, and my thought about this situation is that they're finally getting caught up on something that they were supposed to do. And then you may come up and ask them a question. And so based on that, you have your perspective of what's going on, when in reality, when they talk to you, they're like, oh no, this was something else that, that Joe had me working on. I still haven't started working on yours. And so you had where you thought that you knew the reality of the situation. In actuality, it was something else. But now you have the opportunity to have a response and reaction related to what it is that they stated. And so based on our perspective, it changes or potentially influences our reality. The same thing if we see two people maybe having a heated discussion. It may be that you think that they're not getting along, when in actuality, it may be that they're just really, really engaged and energetic about what it is that they're talking about. And they're very much getting along. They just have like high emotions and enthusiasm over what they're saying. And so when we think of the word perspective, it really is something that we need to be careful on how we interpret what is going on and what actually may be reality. Or if someone is, the term that's used nowadays is gaslighting you, because they're attempting to make you think and believe something that is not true. So when how we perceive a situation determines the next steps for us, our response and our reaction. So how does that help us in our business? Well, how this helps us in our business is that it is important to gather as many facts as possible. Not opinions or not what we think, but do our best to have where we're looking at facts. Now, how do we do that if we don't really know much about the situation? Well, we have to dig, we have to benchmark, we have to do some research, and we have to have where we believe that we have gathered enough information by looking, listening, maybe whatever it is, might have to taste it. So like using our senses, using our mind, and using our heart. And so this is very important, because when we're doing, I talk a lot about risk assessment. When we're doing risk assessments of any type in our business, it helps us to understand what those potential inputs are, and really gauge like how severe is this situation. Now, risk is this whole big thing. I'm not going to get into it too much, in this show, but perspective is something that helps to shape our decisions. And understanding risk in our business is something that should help us to shape our decisions in business. So when we think about the word perspective, um, we need to make sure that in whatever situation, that we understand that two people can survey or listen to the same exact thing and have two totally different perspectives. Now, why is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Part of it has to do with the fact that we all have different backgrounds. We all have different information that we come into the situation with. We all have different things that happen to us even that morning. We all have, or we had a different amount of sleep. We had a different amount of preparation for the day. We have a different ethnic background potentially, and we may be male, female. We may have different thought patterns based on the way it is that we lead, the way it is that we process information. And so as we get into all of those different factors, I named, I don't even know how many factors I just named, that is going to shape our perspective, our view of the situation. And if we were just hit with, let's say, some news that a member of our family was sick or had where, we need to use extra compassion earlier that morning related to a situation in our family, or we went by a car accident and we're just thinking about, life is short and I need to be better, do better, and be more kind. And then we come in to the office with our partner, excuse me, business partner, or at our job, and then we're like, something happens with Sally, and the other person is just like all just digging into Sally. And because of what we just experienced with our family member we just found out was sick, or with a car accident that we just went past, and we're thinking about the fact that, wow, I need to be better and do better with kindness, and I need to have where I show more compassion. Then it may be that you come into that situation totally different than you would have the day previous, and have where you ask a few more probing questions to see, okay, Sally, let's look at and get down, really to the essence of what happened. And do you need more support from your team? Do you need more time? Do you need more supplies, or you need more training or something like that? Whereas before, when you're not thinking about compassion and kindness, not that that's not who you are, I'm just saying you are heightened or at a heightened level because of what you just saw or went through, then you may have where you have a different perspective. So that's just something just to think about, and to know that it is good for us to also think about whatever the situation is from the eyes and from the mindset of the other person. So as they say, put yourself in their shoes and see what you come up with. Okay, so that's the first point. And as we continue on with some of our assessments of the word perspective and the power of perspective, this is something really that can shape who you are. Definitely, it can really shape who you are and how you respond and react, which means that it can affect your life, your business, your finances, your spiritual relationships, and a number of other things. So we're going to go on to some of our next points, and the fact that number 2 is that by having a different perspective, potentially, or gathering those inputs, it can expand our view, which is good for growth. And so for those who have really done well with expanding their growth potential and have done well in the world, we are going to be honoring them later this year. So we're going to share this commercial, and then we will be right back. So, welcome back, everyone. Appreciate you being on today. What we're talking about is the word perspective, and we are on point number 2. So, point number 1 was that it influences perspective, influences our reality. And point number 2 is that it can expand. It can be that it expands our view, which means that it can expand our life. It can expand our finances. It can expand us in a number of different ways. So when we look at the word perspective, let's go into uh, that word expand. So when we get more information by at least listening or looking and gathering information from someone else or from something else, because it's not all related to people. It could be that we get a lesson from an animal, in their family. An elephant, I love elephants, looking at how elephants interact with other baby elephants, or how an ant reacts with other ants, and gathering different crumbs and whatnot to take back to the rest of the colony. There's a lot that we can gain by putting ourselves in their shoes, if you will. Not that ants and elephants have shoes, but putting ourselves in their situation, and seeing, like, what is it that is a lesson that I can learn on parenting, or a lesson on survival, or a lesson on being resourceful from these animals. And then that can expand your view. So that second point, I think, is just so, so important. I really love that point, that it is something that can really expand our view and give us more information to put in our own toolkit as we move forward in life. So the word is expansion, related to the power of perspective. So let's look at this and see if we can gain some more information. Because part of what we're saying here is that we take a different viewpoint. And so when we do this in our business, when we do this in our life, wow, having that other viewpoint might be the deal setter, or it could be the deal breaker. Because depending on how we process that information, it could be that it shapes us to have maybe a negative view, or it gives us just the exact information we need to know how to move forward. And let's go into an example. I talk a lot about anxiety and depression, how a lot of people, like 700 million people, there's all different kind of surveys that I look at. This particular one, the last one I looked at, said 700 million people worldwide suffer from anxiety and depression disorders. But those are the ones that are diagnosed. There's millions and probably billions of us that are walking around here undiagnosed, because we have not gone to the doctor to say, what's wrong with me, or I'm going through this, going through that, and then they diagnose you. So when we think of it from that perspective, and I'm talking about viewpoint, a lot of people have anxiety and depression because they feel that they're by themselves. They feel that no one understands them. But have they used the 51 powerful P's, where is it, of public speaking? Have they actually spoken to people? Public speaking is not just on stage. It also has to do with speaking to people one-on-one. So have you used your words, and have we used our words to formulate sentences, to formulate questions, and to formulate a bridge of relationship with people, so that we can gain their perspective and maybe see things from a different viewpoint, even the viewpoint of the fact that we are not alone, that there's other people that are going through similar or the same things that we're going through, and we can join together and unite and help one another, right? And so it's something to be said for communication and viewpoints. And so when we think about, even where we are financially, and do we have any investments? Do we have where we're using the various things that we know and have learned related to financial literacy to help not just ourselves, but to help our children, which increases, hopefully, generational wealth, but also has where, we can also share that information with our community, whether it is people, whether people in schools or in churches or in our neighborhood, or if we do things at the Boys and Girls Club or at community centers or wherever it may be. That information can help so many people, because there's so many people that have where they have a specific relationship with money, right? So based on that relationship, where they come from, current economic conditions, the economic conditions of their family when they were growing up, where they are, geologically in the world, and if they're a male or a female, sometimes what kind of jobs or internships or any kind of work that they may have had, what kind of investments they currently have. Do they have any insurance policies? Do they know how to use those insurance policies to their benefit? Do they have a will? Do they have a trust? And what are the different things that come up when we're talking about, preparedness for the future? So do they have a financial advisor, or are they able to do it themselves? Do they do day trading? What is it that they have? There's a lot of different things that we can bring up. Where are they on the cash flow quadrant? Do they operate in several areas of the cash flow quadrant? So as we look at those various things, it's important for us to realize that those viewpoints, those perspectives can shape our reality. And it can also shape whether we have anxiety and depression, as mentioned with that one statistic, because we feel a certain kind of way, and we're hiding ourselves and our feelings and not getting out there to see, how can I expand my viewpoint? How can I do better? Who can I partner with? Who can I have where they mentor me, they coach me? What classes can I take? How can I expand my perspective, which can expand your financial outlook? So perspective is such a powerful word. And so that's why we have, the first point related to how it can influence our reality. The next point is that it can expand us and expand our perspective, expand our viewpoint. And then the next one is it can shape our emotional response and our responses and our reaction. Perspectives can shape our responses and our reactions, which responses and reactions do tie around the word emotion. So I want us to think about this. Based on our perspective, we can either go off on someone, or we can have compassion for them, response and reaction, or we can be contemplative and just sit back for a moment or a day or two or whatever and say nothing until we gather more information and research and have where we then can expand our perspective and have a better response or reaction. So when we get back from our commercial, we're going to go further into that point number 3, and then also go into point number 4. We'll be right back. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to The World Speaks. We are still on our pre-shows, and we're talking about the power of perspective, the power of perspective. So we are on our third point related to the fact that perspective shapes and molds our emotional response and our emotional responses and reactions. And so when we look at that, we talk a lot in business, right, about growth mindset, and then those that do not have a growth mindset. So a positive growth mindset and a negative mindset. So when we talk about our emotions, a lot of it has to do with that word perspective. And I can feel something on my lip here. I'm so sorry. Maybe it was come from the other side. Okay. And so when we're talking about the word perspective, we can have a positive growth mindset and turn obstacles into opportunities, which can then reduce our stress and reduce our anxiety and reduce our depression. And so when I talked earlier about the statistic of, the number of people worldwide that have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression disorders, that is huge to have where we focus every day on a growth mindset. So what I want to ask you today is, what are you doing? What are we doing to positively affect and have a growth mindset, positively affect our mind and our outlook and our emotions? Okay. And part of it is having a growth mindset. Okay, so how do we do that? A lot of people do that with affirmations. A lot of people do that with gratitude. A lot of people do that with listing out, what was positive that happened yesterday. And it could be even something that others that would think that it was negative. And this is not a religious show necessarily, but the Bible does say, all things work together for good for those who love God and who are, called according to his purpose. So if we look at it, that first part, all things work together for good. We get in a car accident. Now we can either be stressed about it, or we can thank God that, we're able to say that we got in a car accident, which means that we're still alive. And we were able to say that we had a car and that we had somewhere to go. And we were allowed to have a car accident and still be alive. And so we then can have a growth mindset to say, okay, well, not really sure how I'm going to pay for these repairs, or maybe it is that you can already pay for the repairs, but you just thank God that you're alive. And so what's positive? The positive today, when I look back on my day, the positive is I had a car accident and I lived. And I had a car accident and everybody lived. Like no one else was killed. I lived and the other person died or something like that, And so there's different things that we can look at depending on what happens. And the same in our finances, the same in our business, having that growth mindset. Wow, we have 4 customer complaints this week. 4 customers are not happy with what we produced this week. So how can you have a growth mindset and a positive mindset? Well, they are still our customers. We still have an opportunity to think about and to come up with some teamwork on how can we address this situation and make it better for all 4. And are there any commonalities between what happened with all 4 of the customers, so that we can then see if there's something systemic going on in our business? And thank God, that there's 4 because there may be some synergies and some things that we can put together a team and maybe tackle some things together. Now, it may be that, all 4 are 4 separate things, and okay, so be it. But I'm just saying, see if you can look at the positive side or the brighter side of whatever the situation is. Okay. So that is a way for us to shape our emotional response and reaction based on our perspective. And then you have in your team, people are like, wow, why are you always so positive? Why, it doesn't matter what happens. You are always looking at the brighter side. Like you're looking into the horizon that, this is something that we can do. We have this, we have the people on board, we have the right team. And then even if you don't feel that you have the right team, like we can get some training for you. We can have where you do this research, that research, and can you put in a couple extra hours, Paul or Brett, and help us with this project, would really appreciate it. And then you give them a bonus or some kind of award after. So there's all different kind of ways that those 4 customer complaints can create positivity in your business based on your perspective. All right. Now, part of what I just mentioned takes us to our fourth point, is that it can impact those around us and our relationships. Our perspective can impact those around us and our relationships. Now, I just said the word impact, and you always know I'm going to put that word in front. It can positively impact those around us and our relationships, or it can negatively impact those around us and our relationships. So it is very important for us to not project a negative perspective if it's not needed. And I don't know if it's ever needed. It can be that we have some strong words related to whatever it is, because we have 4 customer complaints. We shouldn't take that lightly, right? If we use that example. And even the car accident might have been caused because there was some car maintenance that we didn't do, and then our car shut off, or the tire rolled off, or something. I don't know. So, we need to have some strong conversations with ourselves sometimes, or we need to have some strong conversations with our team. And it doesn't have to be negative. It just, being strong doesn't mean that it needs to be negative. But being realistic and bringing up realities and facts. Way back at the beginning of this segment, I talked about facts. So it's important for us to have the facts. And so when we look at these 4 customer complaints, let's say that it happened because there's someone that, is no longer with the company, and we filled that position. And so it can be, we blame that, on Bruno or someone, and he's no longer here. And so now we are training someone else in that position. So that could be, that it's related to someone that's no longer there. But let's say everybody is still there. It's still where we can have a positive outlook and see what we need to do to handle that situation. Okay. So when we're talking about relationships, these kinds of conversations, based on our perspective and how we communicate them, can have where it makes our connections with those around us and those we have relationships with, it can make them stronger. Or depending on how we go about it with our communication, with our 51 Ps here, it could make that situation so much worse. So we want to be able to foster empathy and have where we have compassion and have where we do things to not stress one another out, right? And so that is something that's going to be very important for us to think about when we think about the relationships. Now, as we get ready to go into our last point here in the last few minutes, I'm going to play this commercial again, just to thank our network for having us on. And when we do that, we'll come back and talk about our 5th point, which is our perspective can actually be changed. We'll be right back. Greetings, everyone. My name is Crystal Richardson. Thank you for being here on The World Speaks. We are still doing our pre-shows. Really looking forward to having some of our guests on. If you would like to be a guest in our studio, we are not in our studio at this time, but if you would like to be a guest in our studio, if you would like to have a show, a commercial, be a host, we would love, love, love to have you join us. Also, if you would like to have where you contribute to some of our topic casts, so where we have various topics, where we have short, powerful content related to those topics, we would love to have you join us for that as well. And there's more information that I can share with you on that if you go to contact us at lifeinnovationglobal.com. That's lifeinnovationglobal.com. And we would love, love, love to have you join us. So we are on our fifth and last point related to the power of perspective. And I would love to hear some of your thoughts, like if you want to send something to the contact in lifeinnovationglobal.com about how you've used that word perspective to shape your business, your life, your finances, your spiritual relationships, your family, and all of that. So the fifth and final point is that your perspective can be reshaped and reframed. Your perspective can be reshaped and reframed. Now, why is that important? I've talked in all of these different points, starting out with how it influences our reality, how our perspective can be expanded, how it basically shapes our responses and emotions and our reactions. And I also mentioned how it can affect and shape our relationships. But now I'm talking about how it can be reframed. Now we're collecting all this information. We're talking to all these different people. We're stepping back and not just jumping into a situation to give people a piece of our mind or to give them our perspective on a business deal or a graph that they're working on, or what it is that they did in a meeting or something that happened in our family. We're not just jumping in. We're taking a moment to gather ourselves and really surveying and making sure that we understand the situation, and then picking our battles too, right? Because like, how severe is this? I talk about severity as a part of risk management, but how severe is this? And do we even really need to share our perspective? Or would our perspective bring positivity and add value? So we want to always add value in anything it is that we say and do. And so that would be important. But this particular point, our fifth and final point, is that perspective can be that it's reshaped and reframed. Okay. So when we constructively look at whatever the situation is, and then constructively go through whatever our thought processes are, then it can be reframed. It can be reshaped to say, you know what? I've taken into consideration XYZ, and really thank you for sharing your perspective on the situation. And based on that, I think I do understand further what you're saying, and I'm going to implement what you're saying that we should implement. Or I'm willing to give whatever it is a try. Or you know what? Thank you for reshaping that. I thought that we were on the same page, of which we were, but based on what you just said, I'm thinking that we need to go a totally different way. So reshaping and reframing doesn't mean that you're going to converge and go the way that someone else is saying. It also means that you're thinking about it, and based on what they're saying, you're like, oh my goodness, maybe this really isn't a good idea. There was a commercial that used to be on TV about aromatherapy. They wanted to do some things to make everyone's ride better, with ride sharing, and how can we make this better? And I think it was with ride sharing. I'll just say that for my example. So they said, oh, we could have aromatherapy because that's relaxing for people and that would really make it better. And then they did like this and looked up in their mind's eye, and everyone was so relaxed. Everyone was asleep, and it pans over to the driver. He was asleep as well. The aromatherapy knocked him out. So they're like, it goes back to them in the conference room. Maybe we shouldn't do aromatherapy. No, maybe that's not a good idea because everybody converged. It was a great idea. But then when they actually thought about it some more and constructively took a look at it, they thought that it wouldn't be. Now, having the car smell nice isn't something that is necessarily going to make the driver, pass out too. That was just to make fun of that. But I think I would like the car to smell nice if there's like 5 people smashed into a car together. Depending on what the aroma is, but I digress. But I'm just saying that particular example showed how you can converge on something and then understand whether something might be a good idea or maybe not such a good idea. So if we can think about how we want to move forward with using this power, this maybe revised power or new power that we have of perspective. I really would love to hear some of your examples on how you have used this. And we are going to be working on a book on related to this. I have a number of books coming out, some on risk, some on perspective, some on response and reaction that I talk about a lot, a number of different topics, leadership, mindset, growth mindset, fear, and the word perspective is one of those words that has been mixed in there as well. And so, if you want to be involved on one of those shows or in one of those books, we would love, love, love to have you. I am really looking at, when we're talking about reframing, it can be a challenge to step out of your comfort zone, to think about something in a different way, and to really open up and not just be so grounded in what it is that you feel that you can't like open that up, to at least be willing to listen. So that's the thing that I guess I think I would ask of you, is to see if you could at least be willing to listen to someone else's perspective. That's the first step. The first step of growth is being able to have where we take that in and listen, and then see if there's anything that we can get out of that in order to move forward. And so if we're not going to listen, then there's no way for us to grow. And it's not just listening with our eyes, with our ears. See, I messed it up. It's not just listening with our ears, but we can also listen with our eyes. What is it that we're seeing? Are we seeing, how what we have stated that we put of what we wanted to have in place, how is it affecting our team? How is it affecting our family? How is it affecting, us working on this particular project together in order for us to all have financial gain? Like, how is this affecting everyone? So you can listen with your eyes by seeing that everyone's so stressed out because they want to do it exactly the way that you're saying to do it, but it may or may not be working, or it may be causing a certain emotion to be set over the whole company or over the whole business, because of the high stress perspective that we take is then projected onto everyone. Now everyone else is highly stressed, when we can have a smile and still have strong language if we need to have strong language, but have where it is an open environment where people can do their best and strive to do their best, and not be afraid of, repercussions of being fired, but having where, okay, let's sit down and talk about this, and how can we all grow from this? And so there's various things like that, from a human resource perspective, that is always good to have in your back pocket on how can we all grow from this, and how can we, as other people say, create a win-win situation. So I want us to think about this, and think about the fact that as we move forward, this word should become one of the ones that's in your pocket, in your toolkit, to always have where we think about, what can be a different perspective that we take. So being able to expand it and shift it takes courage to listen and say, you know what? It's okay to not always be right, or to have where it has to be like your way or the highway. It's okay to open up that highway, create that bridge, create that road that other people can feel now that they can bring information to you, and then everyone wins. So, and everyone grows. So I hope this show was beneficial for you. We're going to do a quick recap, but I do want to invite you, those who have where you can self-nominate, or you can nominate others to be a part of our awards later on this year, because you have been doing your best and having a really great perspective, and you should be awarded and rewarded for that. Take a look. Hey, everyone. This is Crystal Richardson, and I want to thank you for being on with us today. We're going to do a recap of the word perspective and the power of perspective. So one of the first things we talked about was how it can influence our thoughts and in our day-to-day lives. That's number one, that our perspective can influence our thought in our day-to-day lives and our reality and those around us, based on how we interpret a situation and then how we respond or react. Number two is that it can be expanded based on gathering more information. We can have the same perspective, but it can just also be that now we have an even greater understanding, a deeper understanding, a heightened awareness because of us taking in more information, using our speaking and ability to formulate questions and analyzing the responses. It can help us to expand that. The next thing, it can shape our emotions from the regard of how we respond and how we react based on our perspective of what we see and what we hear, maybe even what we taste. I mentioned what we even smell. That's another whole nother area. It can have where we have different emotions that come up, which can garner more compassion in a situation, potentially, or require us to be more stern in a situation. The next one is it can impact basically those around us or our relationships. So our perspective can be affected by that, and it can also affect those around us in our relationships. So it can be we have where we feel more connection with people based on our perspective, or we find out, you know what, that this is a relationship that no longer serves my purpose or my assignments, and it may be toxic. And so there's those portions, but we can stay on the positive side and say that, it can garner stronger connections emotionally. And then the next one and the last one is that it can, in number five, it can reframe or reshape us. And what I mean by that is that based on our perspective, I mentioned it could be expanded, but it can actually be that it gets totally shifted where we understand, you know what? I'm just going to take what you said and run with that, and understand that the way that I was looking at it, now that I'm looking at it constructively from your viewpoint, I'm going to do a complete 180, not a 360, because that brings you back to where you are. A 180 and go a totally different way. So there's a lot of ways that this word can be used, and we will be expanding on it more in some of our other shows and publications. As I mentioned, would love to have you engage with us here on Life Innovation Global TV and The World Speaks. If you know of some really great people on the other side of the world that would like to be featured on here, we would love to send them a form to fill out to be a part of our show, and to be considered, that is, to be a part of one of our shows as we move forward with The World Speaks. I hope you have a really, really blessed day, and I hope that you got something that helps you understand further the power of perspective. Thank you.